Dethany Badlur has a problem that she cannot quite wrap her head around. Like a difficult knot that she cannot quite untie. It's tough to put your finger on something and hold it in place when your recollection of past events remains just beyond your grasp. You see, she is missing several years of memories. Now, Dethany started out life in the harshest of ways. Her mother, Darya, was a young human woman who lived in a small farming community outside of Baldur's Gate. Darya had just gotten married and started what was supposed to be a happy life together with her husband when tragedy struck in the cruelest of ways, as often happens in Faerun. A drow surface raiding party struck in the early morning hours, while the young couple were lined up outside of the city gates, along with many others, waiting to be permitted entry. Darya and her husband were going to the market to buy something to eat to take back to their small farm, a day out for the young, hard-working lovebirds. The drow force was relentless and quick in their attack, slaughtering many of the farmers and city visitors outside of the city gates. Darya watched her new husband cut right down in front of her. The drow captured between 25 and 30 prisoners and drove them at a run away from the city, intent on taking them to the Underdark to serve in darkness. Darya was one of those prisoners. For the next 3 days, as the drow ran across the surface, heading for the crack in the earth leading down to their subterranean home, Darya ran, limping and gasping. The running was painful, but the short rests they took were even worse. Thrown water and scraps of food, Darya did not even have time to mourn the memory of her husband, as the drow cruelly tortured the male prisoners and sexually assaulted the female ones, taking turns, moving quickly through these horrendous tasks so they could get back to the running again. After 3 days, a small force of following Baldurian soldiers made a surprise attack on the drow. During the struggle, several of the prisoners were freed, including Darya. Even as she was grateful, she quickly realized her life was not about to get any easier, as she was now left to tend to their small farm all by herself. Her husband dead and gone. And when she later gave birth to Dethany, several months later in fact, her neighbors cast her out of their community when she would not kill the half-breed child. And so Dethany, half human and half drow, was raised in a small community far away from Baldur's Gate, where her mother eventually settled. Dethany was taught to keep to herself as much as possible, so as to not upset others with her appearance. She grew up poor and despised, and learned early to steal what she could, and to stick to the shadows and avoid people. But what Dethany most desired was the ability to gain control over her own life. She felt like fate had dealt her a cruel and unfair hand, and she was constantly searching for a leg up. In her late teens, not long after the death of her mother, she found herself in the arms of a kind man. She quickly fell in love and thought that the same was true of him. When she found out he already had a wife, she was furious. Then, opportunity knocked, in the form of a deal with a devil. Arzala came to her, offering her power that she could use to get revenge on the man who had wronged her. Dethany foolishly signed her name on the dotted line without hesitation of any kind. Garzala told her all that she had to do was creep into the man's house at night and kill the inhabitants. And standing over his bed, she was prepared to murder the man and his wife with a knife in her hand, slit their throats and end them. But then something caused her to waver. A noise from another room, which, when she investigated, ended up being 2 young children. She threw the knife down and left the home, thereby earning the anger of her new patron. And that anger played out in ways that she could never have imagined. Now, Dethany was bound to Garzala due to the signed contract, and he now had a plan to make her suffer on the inside, while gaining power from her at the same time. He was determined to beat the goodness slowly out of her heart and mind, wrap her in dark tendrils of evil and malice, and turn her into his perfect, obedient machine. Garzala did some foul ritual and fundamentally changed her by merging Dethany with a lesser succubus. This gave her some new powers. It also meant that every time she killed, Garzala gained power from the souls as an offering, increasing his standing in the hells. Dethany's powers were not on the level of a true succubus, but they were far beyond the level of an ordinary mortal. Not only did she gain power, the ritual also changed her by physical enhancement. Dethany was quite sure she didn't want to charm and seduce men to their doom, yet she really didn't have much of a choice anymore. And no, not just men either. But worst of all was the spreading darkness within her heart. For the next several years, Dethany fought against it as hard as she could, but she always knew, deep down, that it was to be a losing battle. One day, she would lose her humanity to the creature she was merged with, and every time Dethany tried to deny Garzala a kill, or attempted to fight against what he sent her to do, he would just punish her further in his anger. And so the next few years went by, years of fierce internal struggle, marked by blood and death and pain. And slowly, Garzala was gaining more and more power over her soul. And here was where things got truly peculiar, even more strange than they already had been, because suddenly, Dethany's memories were just shut down. She was missing several years of her life. Why? What had happened? All she knew was her memories continued upon waking up on board a Mind Flayer Nautilus ship with an unwelcome passenger in her skull. Because, great, thought Dethany, apparently what she needed was someone new inside of her head, where the years of mental battle had already left her fragile and broken. Could her salvation be in her suppressed memories? Dethany wondered. Would remembering these unlock her chance to be free of this literal devil on her shoulder? Or would it force her further down into the depths of depravity and madness?